everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for dialing in for the first of our 2024 CTN Educational Sessions. Just going to go through some housekeeping. This session will be recorded and made available to members of the CTN on request. If you can please use the Q&A and chat function to type in questions. We'll have a question and answer section at the end of this presentation. So if you could just keep your video off and remain on mute until the discussion at the end of the presentation. And Kathryn is about to pop a link to the attendance register in the chat. If you could all please complete that for us. And again, before we get into the presentation, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and pay our respects to ancestors and elders, past and present. We also acknowledge and respect Ngā Iwi Māori as the Tangata Whenua of Aotearoa. We would like to acknowledge that we are hosting today's webinar on the land of the Boon Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all work today. A little bit of background about our presenters today. We're going to hear from Kathryn Ruff, who is the ANZCA Research Librarian. Kathryn has been a medical librarian for over 25 years. She performs literature searches for ANZCA and FPM fellows and trainees, and you can catch Kathryn at ANZCA Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. You're also going to hear from John Prentice, who is the ANZCA Library Manager. John has been working in health libraries for over 30 years and manages both the ANZCA and CICM libraries. You'll also hear a little bit from myself. I'm an ANZCA Senior Clinical Trial Network Coordinator. I work in the CTN office, and alongside managing trials and research projects, part of my role supports the network's emerging and engaged trialists. Now I'm going to hand over to Kathryn to get the presentation started. Thank you, Kathryn.
So the big question is, what is a research profile? Your research publications and projects. It's usually an online platform where you can put all your publications, talk about your research projects, and it's also, there are quite a few components of what a research profile is. And the little baby clouds that you can see on the slide in front of you, we will be discussing all of these aspects of a research profile. So we'll be giving you a lot of information. So I do recommend that you contact Paige at the end if you would like a set of these slides to refresh your memory. Thank you, Paige. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is an ORCID ID. An ORCID ID is very important. Basically, it's a unique number that is linked to your name. It is also linked to all your research outputs. If you take one thing away from today's talk, it is the importance of having an ORCID ID. This is because it will follow you around throughout your whole research and academic and basically your professional life. If you happen to change your name, or you add professor or associate professor to your name, your ORCID ID, your unique number, will always follow you around. Your ORCID ID also links in with many other online platforms, which we will be discussing today. It's just a great way to have all your research outputs all linked together, all in the one place. It's free as well. So a good idea is to grab a copy of these slides, as I mentioned before, click on the link. If you already have an ORCID ID, please keep it up to date. If you have two ORCID IDs, if you happen to have registered twice, there is the capacity to merge them as well. That's highly recommended. Another thing is there is also a research organisational registry, which is basically like an ORCID ID, but for an organisation. So, for example, ANZCA has a raw ID. So if you happen to publish you can link a raw ID to your publication to let people know that you're affiliated with ANZCA. CTN have registered for a raw ID as well. That's coming soon. So keep a lookout for any updates on what the raw ID for CTN is. And if you're affiliated with CTN in any way, it's a good idea to link their raw ID with your ORCID ID or with any publications. Thank you, Paige. Next, another research profile component is social media. Now, I know some of you might love or hate social media, but the thing is, it's where a lot of journalists, a lot of grant institutions will check out what researchers are doing. So it's good to have a social media presence to promote your research and to also connect with other researchers. A great example of X or Twitter is Tanya Sadlick's Gone Gas Girl Twitter. I highly recommend checking that out. And if you are already on X, becoming Tanya's mate, because Tanya is a great supporter of all things anaesthetic and anaesthesia, and she promotes research that's happening. Another great thing is that ANZCA CTN have a very great X and Twitter. They have over 2,000 followers, and Paige will talk about this later on, but you can always contact Paige or CTN about your research project, and they will tweet about it on your behalf. There's also Facebook and LinkedIn, so having a presence on those platforms is always great to reach other researchers, and also it's a great way to recruit participants. A lot of people are on Facebook, so if they come across your research page and see that you're looking for people, they can link in with you that way. Daryl Williams from RMH has a great LinkedIn page where he actually lists all his publications as well. So you can see what areas of interest Daryl is researching in. YouTube is great if you want to promote videos on your research. You can check out these YouTube clips in your own time, but these are fantastic as having a long form way to promote your research, to tell the world what you're doing. Also, Instagram. You have to be where others are, even if you're not a fan of social media. As I mentioned before, having a presence out there on where others are is a good way to network. ABC of Anesthesia is a medical education Instagram. It's fantastic. It's run by two great Australian anaesthetists. And there's a lot more out there on Instagram promoting what people are doing with anaesthesia research. Thank you, Paige. Okay, next we have databases. So a database is usually a collection of journal articles, but a lot of databases these days will allow you to create an actual research profile by creating a unique ID, which is very similar to ORCID ID. So you might say to yourself, why would I want to have all these IDs? It's because they talk to each other. Creating, say, a Scopus ID via the database Scopus, or creating a researcher ID via the database Web of Science, those IDs can be linked with ORCID. And because Scopus and Web of Science are a literature database, what can happen is Scopus and Web of Science will list all your publications and articles. You link it to your Scopus or researcher ID, and then you link that ID over to ORCID, and all your publications will come over in one big export. And so people will be able to see all your publications via your ORCID ID. That was a lot of information I just gave you there. At the end of this slide will be our contact details at the library. You can always contact one of us at the library and we can sit down with you to help you with your research IDs at any time. Now, I'll be getting a little bit into research impact here, but a part of many databases is a software known as dimensions or altmetrics. Basically, these are the stats behind your publications or your research outputs. These are usually a good way to promote your research, to let people know how many citations you've received. With altmetrics, that's social media metrics. You might want to let people know how many hits you've received or how many likes you've received on Facebook. And what altmetric does, that gives you that information, which you can always put on your Twitter page or on your website. Thank you, Paige. Internet-based sites. So I should mention that with Scopus and Web of Science, the downside is you have to have a subscription to access them. And you can usually only access those databases via a university library. If you're not affiliated with a university, don't worry. There are a lot of free internet-based sources that you can access for free, or you can freely register with to gain other IDs. A great example of this is ResearchGate. Highly recommend checking out ResearchGate. It's not just a place that lists full text articles. You can register for free your own ResearchGate profile. A great example is David Scott's. If you visit David Scott via ResearchGate, you'll be able to see a list of not only all his publications, but all his research interests. Via ResearchGate, you can also ask questions to others in your related field. It's a great way to network. Another great thing with ResearchGate, if someone Googles your name and you have a ResearchGate profile, that usually is within the 5 first hits. So it's a good way to let people know what you're doing and to connect with others. There's also academia.edu, very similar to ResearchGate, but I would recommend ResearchGate because it is currently free, and I think it will be free for a while. With academia.edu, they have a free version, then a subscription version. So in a way, they get you in, and then if you want to expand on your research profile, you have to pay money. And don't be fooled by the EDU. They're not affiliated with any university institutions at all. I just think they got lucky when they registered their URL. Another great free ID out there is the Google Scholar Profile ID. Very similar to ResearchGate. You can register for free and you can list all your publications under your name. You can also do a blurb about yourself, about your research interests. And like ResearchGate, if someone Googles your name, your Google Scholar ID will come up usually in the first 5 mentions. A great example is Kate Leslie's Google Scholar profile. It lists all her publications and interests and very easy to find. Another great aspect for Google Scholar is it gives you a lot of metrics. So you'll notice on the side, there's a graph. So you can copy and paste and download that graph, and it gives you information like H indexes, citation counts. So it lets people know how popular your publications and research are. It's great if you're looking for grants, because a lot of grants institutions will Google your name. And if they can say, well, you've already published 10 times before, look at the impact, they've got a great H index, it's there freely available for people to see. Thank you, Paige. Your own website. So this is a little bit old school, going back to websites, but it's a great way to promote your research. Another great thing is that ANZCA CTN have a wonderful website where they promote research that is affiliated with them. I highly recommend going to the CTN site, and Paige will talk about this a bit later, but if you contact CTN, they will help you build your website. So if your research is affiliated with CTN in any way, contact them. They'll help you build it. It gives extra information about your research that you're doing, links to how to be a participant, outputs and outcomes, and it's updated as your research is updated. A great example of this is the lollipop trial, so check that one out so you can see what it looks like. Also, if you're affiliated with a university or a hospital, sometimes they can build websites for you. For example, the lollipop trial is also affiliated with Monash University, so they've built a website promoting that research as well. One thing to consider is also copyright and open access. Even though you might have written a publication, depending where you publish, you might not necessarily own that article. So please be wary adding any full copy articles to your website. And this is a bit of a push for open access as well. If you publish open access, then you can put the full copy article on your website. For any advice on this, you can always contact us at ANZCA Library and we can help you out with advice there. Thank you, Paige.
Alrighty, thank you, Kathryn. I'm just going to go through now some networking and other opportunities throughout the CTN that can help you build your research profile, find collaborators, etc. So a good example of this for emerging investigators is the Emerging Investigators Subcommittee. So this subcommittee reports to and advises the research committee on issues relating to the support of trainee, junior, novice, and other emerging research investigators, including PhD candidate researchers. So they're a good resource to liaise with or get involved with if you would like to. It's also good to make sure you're signed up to the Emerging and Engaged Trialists mailing list. We circulate grant opportunities, networking events, committee vacancies, and organise educational sessions such as this one on the topics that interest our emerging investigators. Another way to expand your network is to get involved in trial sub-studies and other CTN projects. And of course, attend conferences and workshops to network with collaborators and increase the recognition of your work in the field. So two, obviously, that we have coming up this year that are worth mention are the ANZCA ASM, which is being held in Brisbane in May and has some great CTN related content in the program, including a Bayesian workshop led by Dr. Ben Moran and Professor Andrew Davidson, the CTN late breaking trial session, the CTN methodology session, and the CTN information and networking session on Monday lunchtime. The CTN office members will all be there and we can provide information on the current trials as well as extra support that we can provide to you as emerging investigators. The second event is obviously the CTN Strategic Research Workshop, which is being held in August. Again, we have a lot of great content for emerging investigators throughout the program, including the Emerging Investigator Networking Breakfast, the Emerging Investigator Focus sessions throughout the program. And just to note that abstracts for the new proposals are now open if anybody is looking to submit. Moving on to how the CTN office can support you and what they can do to help you build your profile. Kathryn has previously mentioned a few of these things, for example, on social media. The CTN does have a Twitter account, an account on X, and we can help you promote your research via social media. So if that is a new publication or an announcement, a funding announcement, we're happy to, if you let us know, either tweet on your behalf from the CTN account, or if you do have your own presence, we can retweet it to our followers, as we have, as Kathryn mentioned, over 2,000 followers now. So it's a good platform to be able to promote your research on. Also, as Kathryn mentioned, websites. So we coordinate posts on the ANZCA webpage. We can create sections for you, as well as media releases and other comms on the website, if you let us know. And also we can create websites for your project. For example, the Lollipop trial is a CTN endorsed trial, and so I created the consumer facing website for the Lollipop trial via Monash. So that's an example of the work that we've done in the past in regards to websites. In regards to other support for emerging investigators, obviously, as the CTN office, we do provide support for CTN endorsed and supported trials and projects, but we can provide ad hoc services for emerging investigators. And just a few examples of this are helping to find funding opportunities, support with consumer engagement, and organising educational events and providing information about opportunities such as committee vacancies, etc. If you have any questions or would like to talk to us about any support that you might need, please feel free to contact us at the office. I also just wanted to take this opportunity to mention the ANZCA Foundation. The foundation dedicates around $1.5 million to medical research each year. They support us at the CTN office, our emerging investigators, as well as the ORCID network. They also raise the profile of college-supported research. They have a great source for resources and services, the Research Support Hub. And also at the moment, the applications for the project grant scheme are currently open and close on the 2nd of April 2024. If you have any questions about the resources and services that they provide, or any questions about the project grant scheme, again, just reach out to us at the CTN office. Now I'm going to hand over to John, who's going to talk to you about READ by QxMD. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Paige. Hi, everyone. So I imagine many of you are already using READ, hopefully in some capacity. But for those of you who are new to it, READ is actually an app that's also available in a web version that allows users to actually set up a profile that then lets them set up custom alerts based on new literature or articles, basically new research coming out. So the alerts can come in either an email or an SMS form. That is something you configure yourself, and you can configure for new issues of a particular journal, articles that match your area of speciality, so anesthesia or pain medicine. You can do new articles that match a particular keyword. So if you've got particular interests, you can put in your area speciality keywords, and it'll get back. You'll get alerts on the basis of that. And you can also set up an alert based on the fact that you're following a custom collection. So that's a collection created by others. And as an example of that, CTN has its own ANZCA Clinical Trials Network collection, where Karen actually adds in newly published research associated with CTN. And if you're following that collection, that'll end up in your alerts/feed for Read by QxMD. Now, ANZCA actually subscribes to the institutional version of this, and we currently have about 2,200 users on that institutional version. So that's quite a big chunk of our low base. So there are some additional features that we get as part of that version. One of the things that hopefully you're using already is the fact that you'll be able to access our subscribed full text using the institutional version. So you'll be able to click on a link and that'll take you through to our full text. The other thing that we actually get through our institutional subscription to READ is the ability to set up 4 promotional campaigns every year. So these campaigns actually allow us to set, when we set up the campaign, we can actually add in a whole bunch of articles, usually related to a particular area. So for example, in the past, we actually set up a campaign around the relief trial and the results from that trial. And so what we can do is we can add in a whole bunch of articles, and then when it's published, that comes through as promoted research. So that actually appears in the READ feed in a box that's or promoted research, or it comes through on the emails that you receive as well. So that's a really excellent way of promoting, research that you've been associated with, particularly through CTN. And I think one of the things that we've been talking about is potentially using one of those campaigns every year to promote CTN-related research. Yeah, and if you want to learn more about how that works, we've got a guide there, so you can see the link for that at the bottom of the page. But if you just Google ANZCA and read by QxMD, that should probably get you the guide anyway. All righty, that's it.
Hi everyone, I'm back again to talk to you about university repositories, which is another way to promote your research and to create a research profile. Research repositories are basically a landing platform for all your research publications and outputs. Most universities will have a repository. As an example, we've used Monash University's My Research here, which is designed very well. Research repositories by universities are usually run by big teams, so they can assist you with all the formatting and the uploading. Also, some hospitals or health services will have repositories as well. As an example, we've got Austin Health Research online from Austin Health here in Victoria. They run a great repository. So if you're affiliated with the hospital, contact their library to see if you can tap into their repository. One thing I have noticed about repositories is they've all got very snappy names. For example, Griffith University has Grow. You'll be happy to know that ANZCA also have our own repository called AIRR, which stands for ANZCA Institutional Research Repository. Now, we have given you a lot of information in this talk. We've talked about lots of different websites, databases, resources that can offer you a profile. The great thing with AIRR is this is one place where you can bring it all together. So now John is going to talk to you about AIRR and going to give us a live demo so you can see how easy it is to create your own research profile. Thank you, John.
All right. Thank you, Kathryn. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen in a moment, and I'm going to start doing this the live portion of today. So just give me a moment while I get that all sorted, get myself out of the way. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen. All right. So the easiest, so I'm going to show you, obviously I'm going to show you the ANZCA's Institutional Repository, or AIRR. There are a couple of different ways to get to it. You can actually go to the library homepage and connect through the Research Hub. So that's one way of connecting to it. It's also linked from the college's research pages as well. Personally, I find the easiest way to get to it is just to type ANZCA and an AIRR with 2 R's. And then if you do that as a search, it comes to the very top of the search result list in Google. Don't just type AIRR. You'll probably find there's another AIRR competing for space. All right. So when you click through, you take you through to the ANZCA homepage. So, sorry, to the AIRR homepage. So what's AIRR? So AIRR is designed to capture the research output in the entire college. So that's fellows, trainees, grant research recipients, as well as ANZCA staff. And so basically what we do is we encourage people to set up profiles as well as to submit their research into AIRR. And then that is propagated into a number of systems where it comes up in searches and the like. So for example, last year, the research in AIRR was exposed in up to about, I think about 200,000 Google searches. So basically, if you're searching Google, you're searching AIR at the same time. AIR is also in our Discovery service. So if you search in the Discovery service, you'll find it there. And AIR is also ingested into Libraries Australia Trove Initiative. So anyone who goes into Trove and searches for content there, assuming that they've got the right keywords or whatever, they will come across anything put into AIR as well. So it's a really good way of promoting your research, and it's something that, you know, certainly for emerging researchers, we say this is a good place to actually put your research due to the way that we actually propagate it through the system. The other thing that you can do, of course, is set up a research profile. And the advantage of setting up a research profile in AIR, as opposed to some other places, or in addition to some of the other places that we've talked about today, is the fact that your place of work might change. You know, the university that you're working at or the hospital you're working at may change, but hopefully your affiliation with the college stays constant for the rest of your career. So you can use your AIR profile as a way of, you know, letting people track your progress and also the, you know, the research that you're involved with. So I'm actually going to show you how to set up a research profile now. So we'll spend the next couple of minutes doing that. So once you're actually on the AIR website, if you go into the sign into drop down here and click on My ANZCA, that will take you to the login screen. Just ignore my staff login there. What you'll need to do is click on the new user, click here to register link, and that will take you through to the user registration page. At this point, what you'll want to do is put in your email address, your preferred email address. You can be any email address as long as you're able to get emails, and then click on the register button. And once you've done that, it'll send you an email to your preferred email account, and then you can click on the link in that account to actually complete your registration. And I just happened to have done this a couple of minutes ago, and I've got the email sitting here. So if I click on this email, that will take me through to the user registration page, and I can complete my registration. So I'm just going to put in my first name and last name. Those are the only compulsory fields. You'll note that the language is in there. So you can put in a password. And then complete your registration. And then once you've done that, then you can, at that point, use the My Sign In feature to then log in properly. So if I take that out and put in my actual one here, and log in. Just ignore that. Alrighty. So when you log in the first time, you'll be presented with one of two options. So you'll notice at the moment that I've actually got a matching research profile coming up. And that's because I have a start profile set up. So some of you, when you go in to create your profile, you may also experience this, and that's because ANZCA staff often create profiles for the research that we load, or you may have been involved in a grant that we've actually added a research profile for as well. So where that happens, you can actually associate the existing research profile with your login. And to do that, if you come across something like this, then all you need to do is reach out to the ANZCA library. So that's library@anzca.edu.au, and just let them know that you'd like to have your existing researcher profile linked to your login. And ANZCA staff can generally do that within a couple of minutes of actually actioning that email. However, for most of you, you won't see that, or you'll see that and you go, that's not me. And then you can, for those people, you can simply click on the Create New Researcher Profile link here. You'll see this Create Researcher Profile pop up. Just click on the button there, and then that will actually put a brand new researcher profile into the system. And all you need to do is then click on the pencil here and go View Your Profile, and that will take you out to this currently blank profile. To edit your profile, click on the Edit Researcher page. and then you can start actually completing your profile. So you'll notice, so the first thing that you want to put up here is your preferred display name. So it could be, Professor, John Smith, for example, or, Dr. Jane, whatever. And you can put that in there, and that will be displaying at the top of the page. You also have the ability to add a photo. So, for example, I can add in a photo there that I had saved on my desktop through the choose file thing. And then as you scroll down, you can start filling in the rest of the fields. You'll notice there are a number of compulsory fields here. They're in red, but everything else is optional. Now, in the index name field, what I suggest you put here is if you've got any published research, you put in the version of the name that appears in something like PubMed. So, for example, it might look something like this. And so if you've got a more common name, you might have your index name and your first and middle initial, for example. So that's the name that it's most likely to be indexed on. That index name will actually get used perhaps later on in terms of material that you can submit into AIRR. And it can also be used for search purposes within AIRR as well. So it's a really good idea to put that in. In addition to the indexed version of your name, you might want to put in variants of that. So for example, I might put in Prentice, J. Or if I click on the plus button here to add in another option, I can go Prentice JD, and that incorporates my middle initial. So I'm just going to finish creating the rest of the profile here. And then as I moved out of that area, you can put your post-nominals in as well. And as I mentioned, if you see any pluses here, that means that you can put in multiples of those particular fields. You need to identify a member type. So you can be an ANZCA fellow, trainee, FPM fellow or trainee, or both. You can be involved in any one of our other programs. You can be an ANZCA staff member, SIMG, or you can also be a non-ANZCA grant recipient. So that covers off on those people who are potentially involved in ANZCA funded trials. And so we can add those people in because we often set up profiles for those trial recipients. The next section here has to do with websites. So Kathryn was talking about this earlier, and the fact that you may have actually set up a website either for yourself or for a project or a trial that you're working on. So where that's the case, you can actually add that in here. So it's a simple case of putting in, say, your name that you want to display, and then in the website URL section, that's where you can put the actual URL link. You do have the ability to add multiples of these, so you can put in as many as you like, but just be aware that these tend to be ones that are directly associated with you. You actually have, if it's a social media type one, we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. So I should also mention that you do have the actual ability to put in more than one email address, and the little tick box here is your preferred email. Moving down, you'll see that you can put in affiliations and departments. So you can put in like University of Queensland or hospital that you're working at. Again, you have the ability to add in multiples of those, so you can put as many as you like. The next section is your biography. That can be as long or as short as you like. Again, you're trying to interest people in your research, or you as a potential researcher. So, this is a really good way to sell yourself, which moves us into the next bit, is about areas of interest. So if you've got particular areas of interest, I encourage you to put as many of those in as possible, because these are the things that are going to hit when people are doing searches. So, you might be a pediatric anesthesia or have an interest in it, and you might go, okay, I have an interest in public health, and anything that is sort of like, yeah, I want to do research in that area, put those in, because those are the sorts of things that are going to generate hits. All right. And Kathryn spent quite a long time talking about social media today. And you'll see the bottom section here is dedicated to that. So it's very much about you putting in your social media footprint. And so you can put in your ORCID ID, your Scopus author ID, your ResearchGate profile name, your Web of Science researcher ID, your Scholar ID. You can put in your LinkedIn username. You can put in your Twitter username. You can put in your Instagram username. And you also have the ability to put in other web links that are social media related. So you can add in a whole bunch of stuff here. And obviously where the plus is there, that means you can put in multiples of those. Just a little word of warning, you don't need to put in the complete URL, just the IDs or the usernames associated with those accounts. Then once you're finished, I'm just going to nick up here and get rid of this for a moment. Click on Save Changes, and then that will actually save all those into the system, and then you can see your profile. Now, one thing I just want to point out at this stage is that by default, your researcher profile will be private. That means that no one else will be able to search it or visit it. So as soon as you do create your researcher profile, you'll need to make sure that you go back in, or when you're actually doing it in the first place, just go in and make sure that it is set to public, and then save again. If you want to edit your profile once you've created it, you can do that at any stage. I should just point out that once you've created your research profile and made it public, it's instantly visible to everyone and is also searchable within AIRR. So as an example of that, so if I just go back into the thing here, we were talking about Kate Leslie earlier. So Kate's actually got a profile set up here in AIRR. And if we go through and scroll down, you can see Kate's researcher profile there. And you can see all the information that I've just been talking about. And if you scroll down, you can actually see in the biography, it's got things there about the sorts of things that the trials and that she's been involved with, as well as her complete social media footprint. And as I mentioned, if you want to change it, go into My ANZCA. It'll take you back to your home screen here. And then you just need to use that pencil to go in and view your profile and then edit it. So if you want to change it to be private, for example, you can do that here as well, and you can make it public from here. Or if you want to edit it, you can actually edit it from this screen as well. All righty. And I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you so much, John. And Kathryn as well. Now, onto the Q&A. I'm going to start off with a Q&A that's come through on the chat, which I think, Kathryn, you've sent a little response through, but let's talk it through with the group. So we had a question on how will information feed into ANZCA AIRR? It's hard to maintain so many repositories.
I can answer there are so many profiles and repositories out there. This is a great question, because where do you start? I personally would suggest, if you are affiliated with a university, tap into their repository, because they will have a team that will assist you in building your repository. They will also search your name in the databases, and they will list the publications for you. You usually only have to fill in your bio. Also with AIRR, which I highly recommend, which is a great repository, you also have John and his wonderful staff, Renee and Linda, that can assist you with using AIRR and also with uploading your research publications and output, and also building your profile. So if you don't have a AIRR profile, I highly recommend tapping into that. And also we do have our details within the slides at the end that you can contact us anytime to help you out. 100% an ORCID ID is a way to go, because if you publish, they will ask you for your ORCID ID, because they want to link all your publications to you, no matter where you publish. Also, ResearchGate and Google Scholar I would recommend, because they're free and they are easy to register and easy to use, and they are discoverable. Is that how you pronounce it? Yes, discoverable if people Google your name. If you're a social media person, yes, tap into that as well. Also, if you're in a research group, a project, there's a few of you. If, say, one person takes after, say, the X or the Twitter, someone else looks after YouTube, someone else looks after LinkedIn. You can divvy things up as well. But for yourself, it's a great idea to tap into a repository, tap into Google Scholar and ResearchGate. I don't know, would you recommend anything else, John?
I was just going to.
Sorry, John, you're just muted.
All right. So I just wanted to pick up on a point that Liliana made about information that feeds into AIRR. So basically, it operates on the principle of self-submission. So once you've actually created your profile, we actually get an alert. So whilst the profile can be edited at any time, so we don't actually have to do anything related to that. With regard to submitting to AIRR, so adding articles to AIRR, that's a process that we need to enable, but it's a pretty quick one. So as soon as you actually create a profile, that goes into AIRR, and then, sorry, that goes to the ANZCA staff, I should say, and then we go in and actually we then enable it so that you can then submit to AIRR. So, and we've got two collections you can submit to. There's a clinical collection, which is basically for fellows and trainees and blah, blah, blah. And then there's a staff, there's a collection that's for the institution itself. So for publications like Blue Book and APMSE and that sort of stuff. I guess just picking up on what Kathryn was saying, it really depends on your research journey because, you know, AIRR is going to be with you for your research life, whereas your, you know, university or hospital repository may only be with you for a couple of years. So you sort of need to look at it where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. In terms of exposure, require a little bit more effort, but at the end of that, I'm going to get more exposure because I won't need to worry about the fact that when I leave an institution, my research footprint gets left behind or removed because they might actually no longer keep your profile up. So, you know, you need to think about those sorts of long-term things. And that's where the college, obviously in AIRR, gives you some gives you a little bit more in terms of that journey that you're going to go on for a career.
Thanks, John. If anybody that's dialed in currently would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and we can get you to speak your question. Or if you would like to add it just in the chat or the Q&A, please do that also. I don't see any raised hands, so while we're waiting for people to ask questions, I might ask one. So just talking a little bit more about AIRR, we've talked about how to sort of set it up, that you kind of mentioned about editing the profile, and who exactly can set up a profile in AIRR? Are there any restrictions on who can do so? Sorry, John, you are muted again.
Yep. Right, so we're just making sure there's no feedback. So as I sort of mentioned, well, as you may have gathered when I was showing you the profile, generally it's ANZCA fellows, trainees, anyone who basically, any sort of fellow trainee, FPM, the same. So all of those, they're all able to actually add a profile. In fact, there's actually no restriction about adding a profile, but obviously we get alerts every time someone adds something. So, you know, if some random person decides to add a profile, we can actually remove that. But so if you're associated with an ANZCA Research Foundation grant, then you can certainly create a profile then. And in fact, we actually add grants into AIRR as well. So there's the articles, there's the profiles, and we also add in the grant information. And we actually associate the articles that come out of those grants along with the grant recipients as well. So a lot of people actually have a profile in that particular scenario. So anyone using that sort of mix can be added in. And we've also talked about the fact that, you know, obviously, if you're a CTN participant, then, you know, there'll either be someone in that group or you'll be producing research that's funded by ANZCA. And so as such, you can actually then set up a profile in that particular scenario.
Nice. Yeah, any other questions from anyone dialed in? Okay, nothing's coming through, so I will ask another question. You also mentioned read QxMD, John. So what would be the process, for example, if the CTN wanted to set up a campaign that gave a bit of an overview of all the research that they'd produced that year? What would be the process of going about that? Who would we get in touch with, and how would that happen?
So it's pretty straightforward. So you can just actually email library@anzca.edu.au, or you can fill in there's a feedback form attached to the library homepage as well that you can also use to contact the library. But basically, you just reach out to us, or CTN reaches out to us, and then let us know that you'd like to set up a campaign. The only prerequisite is it must appear in PubMed, because we need a PubMed ID in order to add the articles into the campaign. There's no real limit on the number of articles. So, you know, in the campaigns that we've sort of done in the past, certainly I think with the Relief trial, we added in some of the articles that were done at the beginning of the trial. So there were some publications that were done at that point. And then, of course, we put in the published outcomes that came out at the end of the trial as well. So we sort of just bundled them up into a single sort of campaign. And then obviously that ended up being sent out. But it's pretty straightforward, and it only really takes us about, well, assuming we've already got the PubMed IDs, yeah, usually it takes us about 5 to 10 minutes to set up a campaign. So it's a pretty quick process, but it's really just a case of people reaching out to us and letting us know that they'd like to do it. We haven't actually done one for the last couple of years because of COVID and a whole bunch of other things. We were actually thinking, we're talking about this yesterday, and I'm thinking of actually doing one for the Lollipop trial as well. So they did an initial article on that last week, and that came out then. So we'll probably do one for that, and then deactivate it, and then reactivate it again in a couple of years' time when they have actually got some research outcomes to publish.
Fabulous. Now we're getting to the end. Unless anybody else has a question, I just had one more sort of, I guess, to ask yourself and Kathryn, John, which would be, we've highlighted the research support toolkit about promoting your research here. Are there any particular resources in there you'd like to specifically highlight or talk about what's in there to support the researchers?
Okay, thanks, Paige. Yes, so we have this great research toolkit that there's a link in the slide down there. We do have a section under the published tab, which offers advice and links to a few research profile websites. And also the research toolkit is a great place, no matter where you are on your research journey, on learning and getting knowledge about the steps that are involved with research. We have heaps of links to different organisations, our different LibGuides that basically take you through the steps of research. We also have our contact details there. You can contact us anytime with any question in regard to research. If we don't know the answer, we'll find it out for you. So we are here to help you guys out.
Thank you so much, Kathryn, and thank you, John. I think we'll wrap that up. I just wanted to also let everybody know about a few more upcoming webinars and sessions like this. The FPM research webinar, also with Kathryn on where, how and what to search, refining the research question and searching the literature, is going to run on the 29th of February. And if you are interested in that, please contact FPM and that will help you register. We also have our next CTN educational session, Unlocking Success, case studies from ANZCA CTN sites on implementing the National Clinical Trials Governance Framework. That's going to be held on the 7th of March at 1 p.m. And we will be circulating information on registration very soon. And one last reminder for anyone who's received the COVID survey, the CTN survey from Jill Ormond, to please complete that when you can. And that is it. Once again, thank you, Kathryn, thank you, John, and thank you everyone for dialing in for the first session of 2024. Thank you all.